Story 1. The 1976 bank robbery in Nice, France. They tunneled into the vault on the Bastille Day long weekend, stole over 40 million francs worth of cash, securities, and valuables, and spray-painted without weapons, neither hatred nor violence on the wall. The leader was caught, and during his trial, he jumped out of the window, landed on a car, got on the back of a waiting motorcycle, and disappeared. Story 2. A man dressed like a road maintenance worker robs a cash truck outside a bank. Prior to this, he placed an advertisement on Craigslist offering work for $28 per hour. Anyone interested had to show up at the bank wearing the same road maintenance attire. A dozen men, all unwitting decoys, were milling about the parking lot as the robber escaped on an inner tube floating down a nearby river. Story 3, pretty horrific but also bizarrely complex, was the assassination of Kim Jong-nam, the elder brother of North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un. The two assassins didn't know they were being trained to kill anybody. They were hired on as talent for a prank-based TV show. Their signature pranks were to run up on people in public with hand sanitizer on their hands and wipe it on someone's face. Then they'd go, "Sorry," and run away giggling. The other girl would run up and spray cologne on the prank target, and similarly run off. They were trained after a successful prank to immediately discard the supplies, wash their hands, and change clothes, if I recall correctly, then disappear into the public crowd and regroup elsewhere to film another one. Anyway, this went on for some time, just a harmless prank show until it wasn't. Kim Jong-nam came in through the airport on his way to take his kids for some very Western vacation time. Like I think they were on their way to Disneyland. He was very different from the rest of the dynasty back home. He was disinterested in politics and brought shame to his family with an untoward interest in Western lifestyles and entertainment. So he was kind of sneaking through, trying to keep this trip on the down low. Anyway, here come our ersatz pranksters to play their tricks. Only this time, the hand sanitizer and cologne are two parts of a deadly nerve toxin that once combined on his face, killed him in minutes. The two would-be TV stars scattered, washed their hands, disposed of the supplies, just as they always had. They get caught by closed-circuit television, and the whole affair is just crazy. I probably have all the details wrong, so check out this instead. Story 4. The 1986 Los Angeles tunnel bank robberies involved 2 to 3 people who used all-terrain vehicles and other equipment to traverse Los Angeles's storm drainage system, cut holes into bank vaults, and stole millions of dollars worth of cash and valuables. When investigated, police discovered they were probably very close to cutting their way into another bank vault that would have netted them tens of millions. They have never been caught or identified. Story 5. Scene: the town of Köpenick, a suburb of Berlin. The year is 1906. An unfamiliar Prussian guards captain walked into the army barracks and ordered a small group of enlisted men to come with him. At the captain's direction, the soldiers arrested the mayor and city treasurer on embezzlement charges. The captain made arrangements for the local police to see to law and order and prevent outgoing phone calls for 1 hour, sent the soldiers to escort the arrested officials to a particular guard headquarters in Berlin for interrogation, and personally took custody of the town's cash box as evidence. When the soldiers and their prisoners arrived at headquarters, they were met with surprise and confusion, as the people there had never heard of the captain or of any cause or orders to arrest the officials. Back in Köpenick, the captain was nowhere to be found. Turns out the captain was a former shoemaker named Wilhelm Voigt, who had a few months previously gotten out of prison on charges of burglary and fraud. In the meantime, he had cobbled together a passable uniform from bits he'd bought at second-hand stores, and the entire operation was an elaborate robbery. He got caught a week and a half later because he'd been careless in talking about his plans before the heist. A little over a year into his 4-year sentence, the Kaiser pardoned him on grounds of, "I'm not even mad, that was amazing." Story 6. The head of security of the marketing company that helped McDonald's administer their famous Monopoly game led a scheme where he stole the winning pieces and, with a group of people, helped cheat the company out of approximately $24 million over the course of several years. He was responsible for carrying the winning pieces in a sealed package and taking them to packaging centers, where he was responsible for applying the winners to soda cups and fry packages that were going to be sent out to McDonald's locations that had already been randomly selected by a computer. Basically, he was accidentally sent a bunch of tamper-proof seals that allowed him to swap out the winning pieces he was responsible for carrying with non-grand prize ones. He would dodge the auditor by hiding in an airport bathroom and doing the swap there. Then he'd do his job as usual, but sent the losing tickets out while he pocketed the winners. He'd then get his friends and family to help find people to claim the winning prize for a promise of splitting the money. Eventually, the federal authorities got a tip about one of the winners and noticed that there was an unusual cluster of winners of the game in states like Florida and Georgia, where the man and his family lived. Remember, the tickets were supposed to go out to random destinations around the United States. Several people got arrested. Story 7. Not a great crime but clever. A guy I grew up with was a grade school dropout. He got himself a tow truck and bid cheaply for the contract to service rental cars at a certain airport, Newark Liberty International Airport. Back in the day, cars had distributors. When this guy needed money, he just pulled the distributor wire on a rental car or two. This resulted in a call to him to tow and fix the said vehicle, which he happily did, sending the rental car company a fat bill for complex repairs, when all he had to do was plug in the wire. He worked this scam for years. Story 8. I'm not sure what year this happened, but probably within the last 50 years. A number of people received a letter in the mail predicting the outcome of a sporting event. Amazingly, the prediction came true. Not much later, they received a second letter predicting the outcome of another sporting event, and it too was correct. Then a third letter, and the same thing happened. Then they received a fourth letter, and it said that for a certain amount of money, the recipient would be told the outcome of another sporting event. Many people sent in the money but never received the prediction. The way the criminals did it was they started with a large number of people, then sent half of them one prediction and half of them another. Whichever group's prediction came true, they sent a second letter, and so on. I always thought that was a pretty clever scam. Story 9. There was a parking attendant who collected the parking fees for a public zoo. He worked there for decades. One day, he just stopped showing up. After a few days, they called the city and said the parking attendant quit and they needed to hire a new one. The city told them that it didn't cost any money to park in that lot. Story 10. Maybe not a crime, but I remember a story of an elderly man who had been diagnosed with some sort of disease that would kill him within a year. He got life insurance and killed himself with a gun. The thing was, though, the insurance didn't pay out for suicide. So he bought balloons, wrapped them around the gun, and killed himself outside. The balloons and the wind carried the gun miles away from his house. The police ruled it as a murder, so the insurance paid out to his kids and anyone else on the plan. It was only discovered a few months later when someone found the gun, but because the insurance company had already paid out, there was no obligation for the family to pay it back. His name was Alan Abrahamson if you want more details. Story 11. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum theft has to be at the top of the list. To this day, multiple Rembrandts are still missing, with zero indication of who took them or where they are. Story 12. I used to work in information technology in central London. A story went around about a team of guys pulling up to a very large financial institution's offices one night in a couple of brand new matching transit vans. The occupants got out, all in matching overalls and high-visibility vests, and explained to the night watchman that they were there to do some out-of-hours IT work. They then calmly walked into the IT department, disconnected several £100,000 worth of equipment, loaded it into the back of the vans, and drove off. Between looking completely above board and having some convincing bogus paperwork, apparently, the security guy didn't bat an eyelid, and it was only the next morning that it came to light. Story 13. Yes, they eventually got caught, but the idea was pretty good, and it's quite hilarious that the biggest theft in Canada's history was of maple syrup. Story 14. In older days, there was a fabulous crime. Blank deposit tickets were always on counters, and you filled in your account number and name. Some genius took a bunch of blank deposit tickets and used the magnetic ink character recognition machine, the black coating on the bottom of the deposit ticket that was read by their machine, to encode his account number on all of them. For a number of days, all deposits went straight into his account, and he moved the money elsewhere each day. Clever. Story 15. So, in my opinion, it has to be the Great Train Robbery in 1963. Believe me, it was wild. A group of guys in the United Kingdom stopped a Royal Mail train and managed to steal approximately 2.6 million pounds, which is equivalent to tens of millions now. They used insider information, messed with the signals to stop the train, and executed it like a heist movie. Not condoning it, obviously, but it was a pretty insane plan for its time. Story 16. It's literally daylight robbery, and the best part is influencers themselves were at the short end of the stick. The potential loss is in millions for sure. Story 17. The guy who stole $100 million by sending fake invoices to Google and Facebook. The man pleads guilty to phishing scheme that defrauded Facebook and Google of $100 million. Story 18. Now I know this plan is foolproof. Check this out. First of all, you and I start working at the bank. It doesn't matter the position, just as long as we get in there, all right? Then we go there every day, do the work, and gain their trust until we have them in the palm of our hand. All right, so how do we get the money? That's the beauty of it, brother. They deposit the money into our bank accounts week after week, month after month. They're not even going to know they're being robbed. And then 20 or 30 years later, we walk out the front door like nothing even happened. Story 19. The most genius and clever ones are the ones you don't know about. But two of the most genius criminals that did get caught are Al Capone and Ted Kaczynski. Al Capone got caught on tax evasion. Not bootlegging, not racketeering, not extortion, not murder, not blackmail, tax evasion. His criminal system was so well designed he was effectively insulated from being held accountable for anything. Ultimately, the only thing they could convict him on was not paying taxes on his illegal income. Ted Kaczynski was extremely intelligent. Unhinged, yes, but also extremely intelligent. He made something like 16 improvised explosive devices using very basic tools and materials. People had no clue who he was, and the only reason they got a lead on him was when his manifesto got published. His brother happened to read it, recognized the stylistic prose, and tipped off the Federal Bureau of Investigation that he thought it might be Ted. How tenuous is that for a lead? Hey, the way this guy writes reminds me of my brother. You guys should check that out. If his brother had not read the publication and recognized the prose as familiar, the Unabomber may not have been caught. Story 20. The world's littlest skyscraper. In the 1910s, there was an oil boom happening around Wichita Falls, Texas, and there was a massive influx of people. Yotde. McMahon saw an opportunity and announced that he would build a high-rise building downtown to accommodate the rising population. He put together blueprints for what everyone thought would be a 480-foot skyscraper, one of the tallest in the world at the time. He gathered enough investors to collect $200,000, roughly $3.5 million in today's money, started building a tiny building about 3 stories tall using his own construction crew, and pocketed the remaining cash. Naturally, all of the investors tried to sue him to get their money back, but on all of the legal documents and on all the signed-off blueprints, he had the building listed as 480 inches instead of 480 feet. And he had built a 480-inch building. A local judge declared it legally binding, and McMahon skipped town with all the remaining cash prior to the end of construction. The only portion of their investment the investors recovered was from the elevator company, which refused to honor the contract after learning how small the building was. The Newby McMahon building is still standing in downtown Wichita Falls today. Story 21. One guy found a payment glitch in an online black market back in 2012, leading to the largest Bitcoin theft in history. He stole over 50,000 Bitcoins, worth $3.4 billion today, and managed to hide for years using cryptocurrency mixers that made all his Bitcoin transfers practically untraceable. Story 22. In 1989, a robbery occurred at the armored car outside a bank in Minnesota. As a guard was loading money, 3 armed men subdued him. Then, a van drove in front of the armored car, and another man placed a bomb on the hood and threatened to detonate it. After the thieves fled, the bomb squad was called in to defuse the bomb. They found it was a fake. In under a minute, the thieves took over $1 million and vanished. Police believe it was related to a similar crime that occurred in 1986 in Maryland that also used a fake bomb. Story 23. People stole this massive bell without anyone noticing. There's an even better bell heist. but I'm having trouble finding it. It was an active monastery, and someone stole a multi-ton bell during the night without making a sound to wake up anyone. Story 24. Diamond heist at Gascent Diamonds in Amsterdam in 2001. A man worked at the store and noticed that he gained a lot of trust when handling diamonds with little oversight. So one day, he simply walked in with an empty microwave box and took it to the back. He loaded the box with millions worth of diamonds and walked out the front door, all the while greeting colleagues and customers, never to be seen again.